Thank you all very much for joining us for a few minutes here. We just want to take a few minutes, react to the governor's budget address, and answer any questions you may have. Overall, we look at this from a historical perspective. 2 years ago, the governor came into this chamber and proposed $12 billion in new tax increases to over 100 different taxes throughout the Commonwealth, including an income tax and a sales tax. And then we look at the journey that we began as a caucus last fall to look at reshaping, restructuring, and reinventing how we do budgeting in this Commonwealth. We were very pleased to have the governor be a partner in that by agreeing to remove the sales tax and the income tax, take it off the table as part of the budgeting process, and then taking a serious look at restructuring how we operate government in this state. And I look at the governor's budget proposal today. There's obviously a lot of questions about his billion-dollar revenue package. I'm sure there'll be concerns in that regard. But we're also very heartened by the fact that he took the time to put together $2 billion worth of cost efficiencies, spending reductions, mergers and consolidations, while still investing in the core functions of government, basic education, early childhood education, transportation, economic development, and human services. We have a budgetary process that will begin pretty intently over the next couple of days. Again, I'm sure there'll be a lot of concerns and questions about philosophy and about logistics, but we view this as a much better starting point than we've had in the past. We've got other prioritized issues we want to take a look at in conjunction with the budget process. We want to look at reforming our debt situation in Pennsylvania. We want to look at reforming our pension system so that we not only get short-term savings, but long-term sustainability. And of course, we got a lot of members who want to look at the property tax situation as well. But we view this as a 180-degree turn for the governor. It's a step in the right direction, and now we want to continue moving in that direction with our caucus, hopefully the House Democrats, the Senate, and the administration in the months ahead. Now I'd like to turn it over to Speaker of the House, Mike Turzai.
Thanks, David. Everyone, the tone and tenor of the governor's address this year was significantly different than it has been over the last 2 years. He clearly has moved in the direction of the House Republicans, and I believe in the direction of the House overall with many of our colleagues from the other side. It was more solution-oriented, pragmatic, realistic, not putting the burden on taxpayers that he had sought in the past. I think there was a reality check. In many ways, he has taken a page out of our playbook for the betterment of the citizens of Pennsylvania, and we're very appreciative of that. And I think it will allow budget negotiations to move in a positive direction. A few important points, though. Jobs. Jobs continue to be an important point for the House Republican Caucus. We want to see a development of energy independence in manufacturing in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we want to make sure that the playing field is there to provide those family-sustaining jobs in this state. You have family-sustaining jobs, you're going to have good communities and good schools. Second, with respect to investment in education. We have been, all of us, a part of the investment in education, K through 12 and higher ed, but we also believe that one size does not fit all, and there needs to be investment in school choice options, along with his call for investment in education to really add on to what we had done over the last two budget cycles. And keep in mind, the governor did not sign either of those two budgets, as you well know, whereas the votes came from the both chambers. We want to make sure also that that debt is reduced. The debt continues to rise, and we have to bend that cost curve and begin to bring down our capital debt in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's far too much for the citizens of Pennsylvanians to care, and you're not going to be able to balance a budget if you do not bring that amount of annual payment in debt service that we've accumulated here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But overall, I would say that we're going to take a very open approach to the budget. And with that, I turn it over to our Appropriations Chair, Stan Saylor.
Thank you all. As the leader and the speaker mentioned, we really are going to be focused on restructuring government and creating jobs. So if we go through the hearings starting in 2 weeks, that is where we're going to delve into mostly, talking about our debt reduction, talking about the programs that really work for working families. I think it's very important. We have a lot of good programs out there. But a lot of these, as the governor restructures those, is how you restructure those to make sure that the programs, and just use an example, if your child has autism, we want to make sure that those programs that are for children with autism is working for the families who have those kind of things. And that's just one example. So as such, those are the things we will delve in as the departments are merging together that the governor's proposing. We'll delve into more details and hopefully have for you and the taxpayers of Pennsylvania exactly where we're going as we restructure state government. And with that, turn it back over to the leader.
Okay. Any questions? Karen?
How open are you to considering the expansions of the sales tax that the governor proposes?
Look, we've just gotten the details on those this morning. We understand that he's looking at it more from a commercial side as opposed to an individual side. We think there are a lot of moving parts in this particular budget proposal. We're going into it with an open mind, but I have a feeling we'll have some solutions to put on the table as far as restructuring government, some other potential non-tax revenue sources that we'll probably bring into the mix as well. So I think it's really too early to tell, what may come off the table, what may come on the table. But that's part of the reason we've got the appropriations hearing process. And I think Chairman Staler and the members will do a great job of fully vetting, what is the logistical side and technical side of these proposals and not just the revenue side.
The other thing, Karen, I would say, just if we're going to overhaul state government, we're going to make significant changes to state government. The governor's first thing he talked about in his address was the reforms we did to wine and spirits. There's other opportunities there in terms of moving more to the private sector. If we're going to, decide what government ought to really be in the business of, we have an opportunity to enhance revenues there as opposed to certain taxes that I think he's proposing.
Regarding the sale tax, this is the third year he's asked for it. He hasn't gotten it so far. Are you open to any changes in how the impact fee is structured or any kind of changing the way you collect money from the Marcellus industry?
We think the impact fee works very, very well. It invests in our local communities that are actually impacted by the drilling themselves, invests in environmental stewardship programs across the Commonwealth, and we've always been suspect of the numbers the budget secretary has put on a severance tax, just given the state of the natural gas industry and market prices right now. So I think it would take a lot of convincing for us to actually even believe the number associated with almost $300 million for a severance tax while still having the impact fee associated with it. So there's a lot of moving parts there, but overall we've been suspect for a reason, and that's mostly because the natural gas industry just isn't where it was 6 or 8 years ago.
Are you supportive of the governor's call for imposing a fee on municipalities that rely on the state police for their police protection?
I think that's one of the proposals that has been talked about, Republicans and Democrats, for a number of years now, depending on what type of community you represent. I don't think it's ever actually been fully vetted as to which communities would actually be impacted. Is it only folks with full-time police services, part-time police services? What is the level of coverage you need? Is there a threshold with population that you have to meet to be subject to the fee? I think that's one of those areas where there is a lot of question marks out there. And again, that's why we've got the hearing process to go through, learn the logistics of the proposals before we make any concrete decisions. But I mean, look, obviously any sort of spending increase or tax increase is going to come with a lot of scrutiny given the budget situation right now.
Give us an example of a consolidation that your caucus is considering now, a concrete example that the governor may not have mentioned or hasn't.
Look, I think the governor actually took a number of consolidation ideas that we've been working on for quite some time. We've appreciated the opportunity to have that discussion with them ahead of time. You look at the 6 departments that they're looking to merge into 2 departments with the new Department of Criminal Justice and the new Department of Health and Human Services. Had the opportunity this morning to meet with the acting Secretary of Drug and Alcohol. She seems to paint a fairly optimistic picture of streamlining services and actually making their permitting process and their inspection process work better for the actual consumers and the actual implementers of the program. So we're encouraged. He actually took a lot of our ideas, put it into his product. As the speaker said, I think there's some other opportunities out there for us on a revenue
I have
side.
an example. The SWIFT fund is something that Mark Mustio has been talking about for some time. The SWIFT fund. There's a significant amount of money there. It deals with workers' compensation. He has often said that that's really something that the private sector should not be in. And it's one of the proposals that our membership has put on the table. In addition, on these mergers, we think that they can be good steps in the right direction. I'm sure that the appropriations chair is going to want to see what are the cost reductions associated with those particular mergers.
Sirs, I think the single biggest thing that the governor proposed today in terms of how many Pennsylvanians are affected is maybe the minimum wage. They say that would capture 1.5 million Pennsylvanians if it went to $12 an hour as he proposed. The flip side of that is that's a lot of payroll costs for employers. Are you guys open to minimum wage increase? Do you see that as being part of this package?
Look, with the minimum wage, we appreciate that every 10 to 12 years, folks have this discussion in America and across the states. I think the first thing you have to do is look at where do we stand as far as our neighboring states go. No neighboring state has a minimum wage even over $10 an hour. To propose $12 an hour or $15 an hour as the House Democrats have proposed, it's just not realistic in today's economic times. So, we're very suspect of that particular proposal. We think it would actually push a lot of folks off of payrolls and into the unemployment lines because folks could just not afford a $12 minimum wage. I mean, that's almost a doubling of the minimum wage. And if you go to where the House Democrats want to go, $15 an hour, you're over doubling the minimum wage at once. We're focused as a caucus not on, just artificially increasing the minimum wage for the sake of doing so. We want to have folks who are making the minimum wage. We want to move them up the ladder so that they're no longer making the minimum wage for an elongated amount of time. That's really the American dream. That should be our goal economically, not some artificial wage level where you set it at $5 or $100 an hour. The bottom 10% of wage earners are still the bottom 10% of wage earners. So let's figure out a way to move them out of the bottom 10% and up the rung to success in our economy.
And Charlie, if I may add something, is that when you look at, as Dave just mentioned about the other states, is we, of all the surrounding states in Pennsylvania, we have the highest unemployment of all the states around us. So it goes back to the leader's point of view is we need to create jobs, not find a way to hinder job creation. Just keep in mind where our unemployment rate in Pennsylvania is versus surrounding states like New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Virginia, and Maryland, Delaware. So those plays a big part in what I think our caucus wants to do in creating jobs rather than creating more hassles for small business people.
When you reference the neighboring states, does that mean that is the door open to going somewhere closer to where the neighboring states are on minimum wage?
Charlie, I think the leader was very explicit. We'll take a look at everything that the governor's put on the table. We think that number is unrealistic. In the end, we want to grow this economy for jobs, private sector jobs. There's opportunities to do that in the area of energy and in the area of manufacturing, amongst other areas. And we're going to work together to make sure that the jobs climate in Pennsylvania improves. That's really a focal point for the House Republicans and always has been since he and I and a group of our legislators did Keystone Manufacturing Initiative a decade ago.
For the early retirement, is that something for state workers within 5 years? Is that something you guys would be okay with? And conversely, would you go along with ending the COLAs that you guys get every year and the judiciary gets every year?
In all honesty, we haven't seen that proposal at all from the governor. The first we heard of it was in a speech today, so we're not exactly sure what that proposal means, whether it's just executive office employees, meaning the ones directly under the governor's purview, is it state employees as a whole? So, I mean, he gave a speech, it was about 20, 25 minutes tops. We got an initial, breakdown line by line. A lot of the policy associated with those proposals, that's what we've got to find out. So this morning was actually the first time we've heard about that proposal in this speech. So we need to see what exactly he's proposing and who it would impact. Look, I think that's something that is dependent upon the economy. Every year, some years there are COLAs, some years there aren't COLAs. That's the will of the legislature and the governor in conjunction. There's a lot of policy ideas that are on the table. I don't think there's anything off the table right now, as the speaker alluded to. We want to redesign and reinvent government, and nobody can have any sacred cows in that particular discussion. So we are, at least as a caucus, looking at reducing our expenditures as well, because we anticipate that, if you're going to cut some spending across the board, we need to cut some spending associated with the legislature as well. So, and we would hope and we anticipate that the House Democrats will be a partner in that discussion.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.